Right,
All right, guys.
Marty, stay awake.
I don't have a lot as far as any kind of business or anything like that tonight, other than we do have our show coming up. I'm going to let Marty yell at you if you haven't given her titles or whatever she needs to yell at you for. I will tell you guys that I actually entered the show.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
It was peer pressure. I'm sorry. Marty and Beth peer pressured me.
Yep.
Of course, I haven't ordered my print yet. That's on the list of things to do yet.
Now,
One of mine isn't matted yet, so.
I know how to do that.
I do have the Rose ordering system open right now on my computer, so all I have to do is go in and actually upload the pictures, and then I can order them. But I haven't done it yet. So,
Yeah. Where's Dennis? He brought one in to me today to get done.
did he?
Yeah.
You got any good deals on 16 by 20 frames?
I gotta think. I think some of them are buy one get one 50% off.
Oh, okay. I need something. All right.
What about the matting? You putting mats on them or what?
Yeah, I'll probably put mats on them. I'm looking at my wall right now. I probably have mats stuck to the wall in other photographs. So,
Well, there's quite a few of the frames that have mats in them if they're standard size 16 by 20.
yeah, I'm ordering
11 by
11 by 14. I'm ordering 11 by 14, so just a 16 by 20 frame.
Yeah, a lot of them have mats in them.
Yeah. Dawn, we have I don't know if you're aware, but we have a show that's coming up in next week. We have to do our drop off, which is going to be down at the Greensburg Art Center. So that's kind of what we're talking about now. As far as anything going on, I'm going to just pull up here our schedule for September. We have Carl, you're talking about macro photography at our September regular WPS meeting.
Yes, are you
Okay.
going with, Margie, are you joining in on that?
No, I had no intention of joining in, Carl.
Okay,
I wanted to make sure that his reaction was not, I don't know what you're talking about. So he at least knew what I was talking about. So we're okay there. Annie, the WP or the SWG meeting, you're talking about Photoshop filter tool.
Oh, geez. Okay, I forgot.
I figured that was coming. And on Sunday, September 18th, we do have a field trip or a photo walk, I should say, down to the Strip District in Pittsburgh.
Yay.
So that will be
What's the date on that?
Sunday, September 18th.
Thank you. I can get. Okay.
So that's what we got going on in September coming up. So those three things are coming up for us.
Okay.
Am I missing anything for this month? Let me look at my calendar.
No, but in September, did you want to, Marty, did you want to trade off with Brian for the tips for September?
Doesn't matter.
And somebody can take December. It's up to y'all.
I don't have that schedule. So what are we talking about?
Okay, your September tips,
Okay.
which is at the SWG meeting. And
Okay.
Marty, I sort of knocked her aside this month. She was going to do it. So I'm just trying to find out from Marty if she wants September or she wants December for tips.
Doesn't matter. You see
Doesn't
this
matter.
face? You can do anything right now.
I know. Brian, September or December?
It don't matter to me, whichever one you want.
Oh, my goodness sakes. Okay.
Well, hey,
Marty?
I volunteered. That's the best you're going to get out of me. So you gotta tell me what day you want me to do it.
Okay, Brian, you got December.
Okay.
And
I'll
Marty,
do September.
okay, Marty for September.
Okay.
Because Marty pretty much already has hers. I just can't use her this month.
All right.
Okay.
Alan is going to be talking, or when Alan gets here, he's going to talk a little bit about his camera. He's got the new
Right.
Z camera, Z model, I should say, from Nikon.
And
So he's not here just yet. He's running a little bit late. He's got some things going on, but he is hoping to be here in a little while, from what I understand.
Well-
Anyhow, back to the calendar. I was looking at my calendar. We don't have anything else scheduled for this month that I'm aware of. I don't see that. No. But what we do have on,
Drop-offs.
well, yeah,
no,
our
not this
drop
one.
off, absolutely.
September, never mind. So
I
just tell
was
me when you
talking,
talk about. Okay.
I will. I was
Okay, just
referring
tell
to,
me.
I was referring to any kind
August.
of outings or anything going on like that, because y'all know what time of the year it is, right?
Renaissance.
It's a Renaissance Festival, absolutely. Who has been there?
Today.
Who has been there so far?
Not yet.
DL, did you go?
Not yet. I'm going this weekend.
You're going this weekend? All right. I'm not going to make it this weekend. I did not make it last weekend, but I have intentions of going here very, very quick and very, very shortly after that. I got some other plans this weekend. I'll be away. But we normally do that as a kind of a group thing. And I just wanted to see if anyone was interested. And I got a couple of dates here that I'm available to go, which is going to be the Sundays, of course. I'm available, the 4th, the 11th, and the 25th. The 18th, we're going to be in Pittsburgh. The 25th, I will be there with no doubt in my mind. That's the last day. So there's no question that I will be there the 25th. But do you guys want to make a Renaissance Day for the group like we normally do on one of them other days?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Let's get the most people together that we can have in one place at one time.
I'm agreeing. All right, so 4th, 11th, or the 25th, of course. But like I said, 25th is a given. I will be there. No questions asked whether you all are going or not. And I believe DL will probably be standing beside me most of the day.
Mhm.
He's shaking his head.
Yep.
I'm on vacation the following week, so I don't even know that I'm going to be able to make it for any of those.
Okay.
I have to wait to hear what Nate's soccer schedule is gonna be. I know that Saturday mornings, I'm not gonna be free from like the second weekend of September until the end of October. But he's gonna be playing on the travel team this fall too, so that's Sunday afternoons, and I don't know what time.
All right. Well, you think you got a better chance on the 4th than later in the month?
I probably can go the 4th.
How about anybody else? 4th?
4th is okay.
It
with
looks,
me.
yeah,
Or
yeah,
you-
okay, I'll say 4th or 11th.
All right. Let's make it the 4th.
Okay. 4th it is.
For the group. Did you say what time?
Yeah.
All day. Oh, so the
I'm
Great
not-
Fest
when
opens.
are you meeting the group?
It's a traditional meeting spot.
The traditional meeting spot is just inside the gate or just outside the gate if you're early enough. It opens at what, 10 o'clock, DL, I believe?
Yeah.
Is it
Okay,
10
10 o'clock. What's that, Annie?
I said, is it 10 or 10:30? I think last year they started at 10:30 instead of 10.
It was at 10 last year, because we
It's
met at
10 o'clock.
9:30, I think.
Yeah. So anytime up till 10 o'clock, we'll be there. As the gates open at 10 o'clock, we'll be walking in, but I won't leave the front gate until 15 or 20 minutes after that if you're running a little bit late or whatever.
The bakery's right inside anyway. So.
That's a good place to wait.
Yeah, Brian likes to
all
wait.
day.
Mhm.
Good place to wait all day.
It says they open at 10:30.
Okay.
Both days.
All right. So still 10 o'clock, we'll meet.
Okay.
All right.
Because there's all kind of stuff going on the outside of the gate before they open the doors.
Oh, yeah. All kinds of fun.
Yeah.
Good.
So We'll meet at 10 o'clock on the 4th at the Renaissance Festival. Anybody wanting to go, you're welcome to come along.
Hey, it's in the phone.
All
Done.
right. So I'm excited about that. As you all know, I'm always excited about that.
Oh, yeah.
I look forward all year. I tell people all year about the Renaissance Festival and trying to get more people there. So
I don't think Lady Victoria is coming, but there is a new young lady that is going to be playing the harp. She was in the store. She bought a bunch of material off of me and we were talking. So she's going to be on the Rose stage and then down in the same area where Lady Victoria used to be. Or
yeah,
was.
Lady Victoria, I don't know that I forget where she's at, but there will be there's actually some new acts there this year, and also the guy that does the tightrope, that sets up a tightrope and walks.
Yeah.
He's going to be there this year. So
Oh, the wash ladies.
the washing wenches will be there.
Yeah.
So
Thought I'd tell you the new harp player. She's got a fairly large harp, I guess. But yeah, she was looking forward to being there this year.
all right. Okay, so we got that under control. We know when we're doing that, and I don't think I have anything else at all. Who has something they need to bring up? Marty does.
Yeah, Marty does, and then I do.
Okay, so our deadline is coming up for drop-offs, September 2nd. And we are doing, the new drop-off time will be 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. And then Saturday, September 3rd, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then our pickups have changed too. And it'll be Monday, October 17th, 10 a.m. to noon. And then Tuesday, October 18th, 5 to 8 p.m. We have 17 members who put work in. So we'll have like 51 photos. Grace is our youngest one. She has 3 going in.
Which I've had a preview of.
Great job.
And
Mhm.
our opening is September 10th, 6 to 8 p.m. I look forward to seeing everybody there. I have postcards. If anybody wants to hand them out, let me know. I'll get them to you. I just posted on my page on Facebook. You can share that if you'd like. Brian, I could not share it with the Facebook group, so.
No, you
that
can't, but
was
I'll
one of-
post them. I'll post them here probably while we're going through the evening.
Okay.
Marty, I'm gonna have to get my 3 pieces to you. I'll be at work on the 2nd. I'm working a mid.
Right, so, yeah. If anybody needs their work dropped off or picked up, let me know. And I'm sure we can arrange something.
All right. Anything else there?
Yes. For next month, September SWG meeting, I need to know who is going to do a presentation on their mirrorless camera. I know there were 2 or 3 of you out there that wanted to do it. Okay, nobody wants to do it next month?
I could
But
do
at the
mine.
SWG, at the SWG meeting,
Introduction, it's gonna be mighty short.
Yeah, it's only going to be 5 or 10 minutes total. You know, just to give us kind of an overview of what you think of your mirrorless camera kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'll have to get one.
I'm okay, I can do it.
All right.
It's at the SWG, right?
Martin?
Who was
Yeah.
that?
The SWG meeting. It's Rob.
It's a SWG meeting
Rob.
next month.
Okay.
Is that right? I mean, I'm just
Yep.
asking.
Yes, it's at the SWG meeting.
Okay.
All right. We got that. Anything else?
Well, the tips.
While we're talking about that, if anybody Well, any of the ones that have the R5 or R6. If you need a battery grip or an adapter ring, let me know. I have them for sale. Because I got rid of my R5s. So.
All right. All right. Anybody else have anything that we need to discuss or anything like that?
I'm just curious why you get rid of your R5.
Me too.
Well, because I couldn't register it, number one. And then with my concussion that messed up my eye, I cannot look through the electronic viewfinder without getting a headache. So it's not worth my eyes getting messed up.
Well,
Mhm.
sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was
But
called.
every time I used it, my eye I couldn't see for like a couple of days afterwards, right? So I needed to get rid of it. And I couldn't use the viewfinder on the back. It didn't work for me. I need to look through the optic one.
All right.
All right, if nobody else has anything, I have Carl down. He's gonna talk a little bit about Topaz.
Yes, in the past week or so, Topaz has come out with a new product called Photo ID, or excuse me, Photo AI, which will be released on I lost you guys. It will be released on September, I believe it said the 22nd. For those of you who don't use Topaz, let's see, it's Topaz denoise, Topaz sharpen, and Topaz gigapixel. Right now they're offering it for $199 to get those three items, and you will get the Photo AI as soon as it is released. I was beginning to use denoise and sharpen quite a bit, and what I have found out, especially from taking photos at the last weekend, is it's working quite well. Basically, you start out in Lightroom, do your basic adjustments, and then push the edit in Photo AI, and it goes over and it gives you a choice of all three pieces of software to work within, their settings. And actually the built-in priorities are quite accurate as far as the software goes. So I'm sticking with it. Recommend anybody else that's using them to give a look at the whole package. I'm done.
Thank you, Carl.
You're welcome.
The tip tonight will be Rex. Rex has about a 10-minute video that he would like to show.
Okay, you want me to go ahead with it?
Sure.
Just don't
All
forget
right.
to, Rex, don't forget to click on that share audio whenever you start to share your screen.
Okay, maybe you can navigate me to it.
All right,
Make
when
it-
you click on share screen,
Okay. Which
at the
is,
bottom, at the bottom of that group of that page, there will be a thing that says share sound. Make sure you click on that whenever you're showing a video, otherwise we won't be able to hear it.
I see participants, chat, share screen. I don't see, well,
Click on
hit share screen first.
Yep.
Okay, I'm hit share screen, and then in there should be share audio,
down at the
share
bottom. it
sound.
says share
Okay, I'm going to
sound.
check. It's checked.
Yep,
it's
that's all
checked.
you need to do. You're good.
Okay,
And you can
and
share your
then,
screen from there.
all right, let me see. I'm going to go up and get in here. Working my way to it. It's video projects. Okay, I've got the target up for it. What this is this goes back to about 2002 or 3. It's a collection of seniors. It's young men and women, young boys and girls, young kids, and some of them are done in our home studio, others outside the home studio where we had outdoor facilities, and then others are done on in-home or location. And I think it's about 10 minutes, and you might have to adjust your own audio. And let's see what happens. All right, let's go.
Nothing.
So do I assume no one else is seeing Rex's screen?
Not seeing Rex's screen.
No, Rex, you gotta make sure you hit your share screen.
Are you seeing it?
No.
Oh, okay. All right, let's hit the brakes here. Not sure where to go with it here. I'll tell you what, let me take it out to the desktop. So I'll just take it out here. Put it there.
Go down, Rex, go down to the bottom and hit share screen on your Zoom page.
Okay, share screen.
Make sure you click on the audio thing down at the bottom, like we said before.
Okay, done.
And then just pick your desktop and hit share down at the bottom right side.
Okay,
There you go.
There you go.
all right.
Good deal.
Sorry about that, guys. Okay. Let's see, somebody guide me back.
Are you done, Sarah? Yep, you got it.
Yep, we're done. Okay. Now,
Right.
was everybody able to see and hear it all right?
Yes, it was really, really good.
Okay. Yeah,
Your-
we can all come back down to earth now, that music.
Well, your photography is so outstanding, your portrait photography. I really enjoy it. I do have a
Questions?
question.
Sure.
Do they bring a suitcase or two when they show up for a Photoshop? I mean, a photo shoot?
Session? Sure. Yeah, many of them would bring a bag or a suitcase and props and things as big as their car, which we would drive into the backyard on a dry day and use that for part of the scenery, like you saw the young man in the beginning.
Right.
So yeah, and sometimes it was done in their homes and they had everything they needed right there. Yeah, there were, we had a lot of different props and a lot of different backgrounds. And the main thing was that we would have an interview beforehand. Let me see if I can get my own face back in here on the, there we go. Get everybody back. Okay, I see everybody. We would have an interview, and in the interview, of course, we would find out the things they would like. We would find out the, like, for example, a couple of the young men there were guitar players, and they wanted to have their guitar in the picture. So we had to figure out how we were going to get a guitar that was this long into a shot that was going to be, you know, that wide. Then we would have different backgrounds that we would have them look at and choose from to match their clothes. So these were things that were done ahead of time. Most of the time, the parents would come in with them. Sometimes the young adult would come in on their own and make their decisions. And one of the things that, here, this is one of the things I was going to show, is just like now, I say, well, what did you think? How well did I do? We had one of these. We had a card here that we would give to them, and the card would say, how did we do? And of course, one free 5x7, I guess they would get if we got the card back. So there were little things that we did to kind of keep things going and to get their friends to come in. I think as I go along, I tell my stories, I go back into that slideshow you just saw, and you saw that 3 different young ladies all came in at the same time. Don't you think that was a heck to deal with? Talk about herding cats. Okay, it was kind of like the same thing, but we were able to do it. And we actually got, my favorite was that Charlie's Angel shot that you see there. That was popular at the time, and that was the kind of thing that they were asking for. So that's about it. I just wanted to get my 2 cents in there on the things that I like to do. One of the things that I absolutely have to say is that that was an entirely different kind of photography. It's amazing that very few of the things changed as far as camera distance, exposure, the type of lights. They were a little bit more sophisticated, so that we would have soft boxes of different sizes and types and put them at different distances. But a lot since I came to Pennsylvania and joined WPS and began getting a big appreciation for all the different types of photography that our members do. So I'm certainly thankful that I found this group, because I've enjoyed it since 2007. You do the math. And that's my act.
Well, it was really good. I appreciate you showing it under tips. It gives you all an idea of what you can do with tips. Tips is anything photography. So it's 10, 15 minutes long. And anybody who would like to do a tip, we have 2023 opening up. So just get with me and let me know, and I'll put you on the schedule. We have one tip per month. And this is just another way of doing tips. And I really enjoyed it, Rex.
Thank you, Rex.
Thank you. Now, this collection, I do have the individuals and their own sessions, and I also have children, toddlers, and babies, and those are quite a bit funnier than seniors. So, sure, maybe I.
You froze up.
Am I back yet?
Yeah, you're back.
Yep, you're back.
Oh, okay. All I said was, I have some toddlers, I have some children, and I have babies. And I can put together something like that in the future if it seems interesting.
Well,
Okay.
that was interesting. So maybe next year. I would definitely.
Oh, that would be
get
fun.
with you. Okay, great.
Next year, come on. I am
Okay.
80. I am 80.
Ah, you'll be around.
I'll be around. Okay. Yeah, I'm in shape. I'm in shape.
Okay, Brian.
All right, thank you, Rex. Thank you, Marty, or Margie.
Brian.
I'm having trouble tonight. Thank you, Margie. Thank you, Rex. Appreciate it. All right. So I guess we're going over to Jim. Jim, you got any news for us? It looks like you got a few things posted there.
Yeah, I posted some links. Brian, I'm wondering, Alan's on now. Did you say he wanted to do something?
Alan's going to talk a little bit about
Mirrorless.
his camera, I believe. If he's ready, we can go over there. It's up to you. Alan, it's up to you.
Yeah, I can take care of that.
All right. Alan's going to talk a little bit about, Alan's got a new Z7,
Yes.
which if you don't know what that is, that's the Nikon mirrorless camera. So Alan's going to give us his thoughts about his new camera.
Basically, I just put everything under pros and cons. Of course, the main pro is the weight of the camera. I don't know exactly what it weighs, but it's like about a fourth of what my 850 weighs. One of the main things I do like is a lot of the aftermarket items, third-party items like an L brackets and shutter releases. They all the ones from the 750 will fit it. The batteries are even interchangeable. From the 850 to 750 and the Z, I have 5 batteries now for one camera. But as a con, it does like batteries. I probably get 50 to 60 photos until I have to change the camera or the battery. Another thing I really like is the histogram. Is you can see it in the viewfinder and on the live screen. From your adjustments for your shutter release, your shutter speeds, and that it's all right there. You can just do it. Ever since I downloaded the newest, I don't even know what the heck they're called.
Firmware?
Firmware, that's the word. I think it is a lot sharper than my 850, believe it or not. Even with the F-mount batteries or lenses. One of the things I don't like, and it really bothers me when I'm out doing wildlife photography, is it shuts off when you're not touching some button on it. And then even at that, it takes about 3 seconds till it comes back that you can take a photo with it. High ISOs are awesome with it. I've been up to 22,500 and really not had much for grain. The autofocus in low light is a lot better than the DSLRs that I've found. Even through my 10-stop filter, I can use the autofocus.
Wow.
The factory rubber eyepiece is a real pain in the ass. It always moves around, and if it covers the little sensor where it goes from live view to if it moves just a little bit, it automatically quits live view, and you got to look through the eye. I had to replace that because it was just getting terrible. I actually threw the other one away one day and had to go buy another one. Another drawback is it only has the one memory card. Recently, I've been reading articles that the rubber seal around the door, after you use it for so long, it kind of starts to leak and you get dust and water in there. And the main con for it, in my opinion, is the price of the Z series lenses. They're just ridiculous. I'm still learning about it, so I can't really go too much further on it. It's great for stills. I would suggest it to anybody for landscape or anything that way. But if you're going to use it for any kind of motorsports or wildlife or something, you're better off with a DSLR. That's really about all I got.
You said you only get like 50 to 60 photos out of one battery.
Yeah.
Got to be a pain in the butt.
Yeah, I carry 3 batteries with me at all times.
So
when I
you're
take that.
like
How
100.
old are those batteries?
I'm sorry.
Said, how old are those batteries? Do they have a lot of clicks on them?
At the most, I would say 3 years.
It shouldn't be that bad. But they became fine on your other computer, or your other camera, right?
Yeah, they last forever in there.
Alan, I have the same battery life issues with my Fuji. And what I found that I can't enumerate the difference in number of shots I can get on one battery, but it makes a big difference whether you keep your LCD screen on or not. I try to keep it off as much as I can.
I don't know if I could actually shut that one off other than shutting the camera off.
I bet you have the option.
Never tried. I'll have to look.
That still is so few photos, because when I go out, it's easy for me to take 500 plus pictures.
Yep.
I'd really have to take a bunch of batteries.
I have a thought.
I get more than 50 or 60 with my Canon, but it's a lot less than my DSLR was, but it's not 50 or 60. I never really recorded. I know the last time we did a photo shoot, like when we were in Pittsburgh, I only used one battery and it lasted the whole shoot.
I have a question about, the idea was on your timeout. You said that if you don't keep a button pressed on it, it goes into immediate timeout. The question was, is there can you set a linger time on it? Is there a way you can change the timeout on it, Alan?
You can take it up to 1 minute, but the
I
problem
realize
with that is the battery usage then.
Well, yeah, I was
down to 40 shots.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing I was thinking is that without a grip, grips usually have at least 2 batteries in them. And would that increase it to say 120 shots with a grip.
Oh, I'm
Can
sure
you
it
get a
would.
grip?
I don't have a grip, so, and I don't know anybody that has one, but I'm sure that would help it a lot.
Okay, well, you know, if you were shooting scenarios where it was do or die and you had to have, say, 60, 80, 100 shots and some left over for the flight home, you might want to have a grip on that camera. It's,
Well, I
now,
always carry 2 batteries.
did you ever check out how much they cost? What do they cost? And are they available?
I've never priced a grip for it. I don't even know if they're available.
That was the question. Okay.
I always carry 2 bodies with me. I take my 850. And actually, I like that camera a lot more, but when I'm walking around, the Z7 is a lot nicer to have in my hand rather than that 850.
Not as heavy.
Yeah.
If you had a battery grip with it that has what 2 or 3 batteries in it, then you're going back to the same weight as the other one.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and that, you know, all the more photos you get out of it, like the batteries that I have for my camera, I can get like 1,200 photos out of one battery.
Me too.
Wow.
So, I mean, whenever you said 50 to 60, it was like, holy crow, you're going to be taking 5 batteries with you to get, you know.
Yeah.
Even
I took it with me the other night, last Friday night, and I used 2 batteries in 150 photos.
well, what's the pixels on that, on the Z7?
It's the same as the 850. They're what, 40, 47.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. That's where that power goes.
Yeah,
Creating those large raw files.
yeah, that just is like crazy on the amount of battery
Oh.
that it needs to.
Well, that's beautiful. No, I mean, having the 40 megapixel camera that's, you know, wow. If you want to be in the commercial business, that's the thing to have. Then it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Bring
thing,
extra
though,
batteries.
The thing though is the 850 is the same megapixel, and Alan just said uses the same battery.
Yeah.
Yet I can take my camera out and shoot almost all day on the same battery, and sometimes 2 days. So what the issue, in my opinion, I don't know. I mean, I could be just blowing my own horn, but I think what the issue is because it's mirrorless, because it's using a
Electronic
electronic shutter, electronic, and a digital viewfinder and all that kind of stuff. It's just using way too much out of the same size battery. And I see this with a lot of digital or a lot of mirrorless camera complaints. That's one of the biggest complaints that I see is that they don't last. The batteries die all the time. They're always having trouble with the battery. So possibly a different battery or better battery or something like that, or a bigger battery is something they need to look at.
Yeah, a shoulder pack.
Yeah, like the old sun packs, or like we used to use on our flashes where we carried.
Yeah.
Carried them for years.
Yeah.
12
I
volt
could have
marine battery.
one plug for the flash and the other plug for the camera.
Yeah. You can connect it to a car battery.
Yeah.
That'd be a little heavy. I want wheels.
Yeah. But
Well, I tell you what, I can't help but comment that, you know, it like Margie and I think Annie mentioned taking 500 photos a day. If you get a mirrorless camera, you realize that you're not going to do that, and you adjust your shooting style accordingly, and you always have a spare battery with you. It's, you know, when we do our photo walks, it's not unusual for me to probably about 3/4 of the way through the walk to switch out to a second battery. So I carry 2 with me on my person, and I have a third one in my pack if I really absolutely need it. But you just learn to adapt to it. If your major concern is I can't take 500 photos in a day, then you probably don't want to go to mirrorless. But I think it's a small price to pay.
I don't know. The only thing I really like so far about a mirrorless camera is the lightweight, Because as you get older, these 750, 850 Nikons, they're heavy, especially when you have, you know, the 2.8 lens on there. They get very heavy. But I think that we have a long ways to go on the mirrorless cameras before they're where I want to pay the kind of money to get one. There's too many cons about it, at least on the Nikon. Now, your camera may be different. I heard the Sony was, you have a Sony or you have a what? Because I heard a Sony is really a good mirrorless camera.
Jim has a Fuji.
Fuji, yeah. So it's, and I just said 500 just to throw it out there anyway, but I take a lot of different angles. I mean, I can look at a plant and I can have 20 different angles on that plant alone, one plant, one. So yeah, you know, it's gets back to the flowers and etc. that I had to, you know, supply for A&M or the magazines and etc. the newspaper. They want different angles. So I can really take quite a few different angles on any subject and then pick out where I like, which angle I like the best. So it adds up.
Alan, in your reference to the iCup, there's a company called JJC, initials JJC, has just released an iCup for the Nikon 7/9, something like that. And I also believe that Hoodeye has one that'll fit your camera. You can find reference to them on a website called NikonRumors.com. Give that a look. That's where I find most of my advanced information on what may be coming up shortly. NikonRumors.com.
I was actually on a site called Backcountry Gallery.
Yeah.
They are a lot of Nikon users on there, and I think that first one you mentioned, what was that, JJC?
Yeah.
I think that's the one I got that's on it.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Alan. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Alan.
Welcome.
All right.
I can see Brian with a 9 already.
I'm on a waiting list.
How is it, just out of curiosity, how's the battery life on the
Fine.
R5 for the Canon?
Through the batteries as well. I'd have to change it out when we went out. Where my other ones I could shoot with the same battery all day. I'd
Yeah.
have to switch it out. With the R5.
Alan, in the chat, I noticed that Beth put a link to the battery grip if you want to get one. It's $400.
Yeah, I don't need one that bad. I could buy a lot of extra spare batteries for that.
It
And they
holds
ain't that
two
heavy.
batteries.
Well, the other thing is that you're defeating the purpose at that point, because the purpose of the
weight.
The mirrorless is to weight and smaller and easier to carry around, and then you're going to add a battery grip, which makes it bigger and heavier. We're back to a D850 now.
Yeah, I said.
All right.
Well, the D850 is a lot heavier than any kind of camera with batteries attached to it by itself.
Yeah. All right. Jim, are you ready for news at this point?
I can do that.
Okay.
Okay, you see my Zoom screen there, I assume.
Yes.
Yep.
So speaking of mirrorless cameras, Panasonic and Leica apparently have some type of a joint development agreement that they're gonna go in together for a new mirrorless camera. Supposedly what they're calling a high-end camera, but it probably won't be available for a year or so. So if you're interested, you can stay tuned for that.
Hey, Jim,
Yes,
is this one of those deals where Panasonic throws in the technology and Leica throws in the price?
No, the lens, probably the lens.
well, I really don't know. It's the article does not discuss who's providing what, but that would be a good guess.
Leica lenses have been superior for ever. They've always been competitive and very expensive.
Well, they say this is going to be a high-end camera, so
Mhm.
you're probably right.
Mhm.
Oh, excuse me, I got some Post-it notes coming in.
I'm getting thirsty. What happened?
Yeah, if I was a cops
Little
again.
Pavlov going on there.
Oh, I can't get out of there. Hold on. Oh, here we go.
You've been hot.
What was that?
Said you've been hot.
No, I have Post-it notes on my, can't get rid of this thing, unfortunately, with that. Oh, there we go. That's a new one. Excuse me for a second here. All right.
He's hacked
Slide this
himself.
down here. I'm sorry, but I can't get rid of that without actually going into the notes themselves. So Alan, I kind of laughed to myself as you began your discussion about the Nikon Z7, because not that there was anything wrong with the Z7, I don't think, but and this is a rumor, this isn't official from Nikon at point, but apparently they're going to discontinue manufacturing the Z7. And that's primarily because a year or so ago, they came out with the Z7 II, if you will.
Yeah.
And the one thing that you mentioned was you just had the one card slot. That I know that is one thing that's different with the Z7 II. It does have 2 card slots on it. So just that's kind of interesting coincidence, I guess. And got a couple of other items here that I don't really have any articles on. I'm just going to mention them to you. Those of you who use Amazon Drive for cloud backup, you probably got the same email that I did a month or so ago. But Amazon is discontinuing the use of Amazon Drive itself. And right now they have both Amazon Drive and Amazon Photos. They're going to go strictly to Amazon Photos. And it's so that the discontinuation is over the course of next year. Beginning the 1st of January, you no longer can upload photos using Drive. You'll be able to download any photos that you currently have on there, of course. And then by the end of 23, they're just basically ending the use of Drive. So the access to the photos that you currently have on the cloud will be through Amazon Photos. And any photos that you want to continue to upload, there is an automatic upload on various folders you can set on your computer. So they're just changing from Drive to Photos itself. The other thing, and Brian, you might have to chime in on this one. I don't know if I have all the details on this, but we've been talking about Skylum Luminar's Neo for the last few months, off and on. And they came out with an email the other day. They're changing their business model to a certain extent. Up until now, you basically just bought the software app itself and you could keep it forever unless you wanted to upgrade to the following year. They're going to continue that, but they're also going to have a subscription model. And I don't know how accurate this pricing is. The subscription model is going to be I'm going to round it, $15 monthly and $89 yearly. And then if you want to continue with a one-time purchase, it's $99. But the other significant thing they're doing is they use the term that Luminar Neo is their platform device, and it has all the basic editing functions that we talked about the other month. But they're also adding what they're calling extensions. And Carl had mentioned the Topaz products, which I use. Some of their extensions are similar to the Topaz AI products. There's a denoise AI, there's they call it enlarge AI, but it's the same as the gigapixel AI that Topaz uses. And there's a denoise extension as well. And Brian, what I wasn't certain of, and maybe you know this, but I had the impression that you bought the extensions separately.
I believe that is correct. I haven't read a whole bunch of that. Like I said, I've been on vacation, so I haven't really been looking at anything. But I do believe you are correct that you have to buy the extensions separately, which is, and the subscription thing that really didn't surprise me that they were gonna that they did that based on what every other company does, is you end up with a subscription and have to pay for it monthly. But yes, you do have to buy the, as far as I know, you have to buy the extra stuff separately.
Okay, I thought that was the case, but I just wasn't positive because I hadn't seen any actual pricing for it yet. Okay, so that's it for in the news. I guess I'm up next, if you will. I'm going to give you a short presentation on the use of the PhotoPills app. So what's PhotoPills? First thing to know, it's a smartphone app. It's not available for desktop use. And those of you who particularly like landscape type photography, it really is almost invaluable as far as some of the features it has. And I'm going to start with this 6-minute video that just gives you an overall look at it. And then we'll go through some of the individual tools one by one afterwards.
Those people who have the PhotoPills app on your phone, but you're so confused about how to use it that you just don't. Well, in this weekly series, we are going to break down step by step how to use PhotoPills so that you can start using it in your photography today. So stay tuned. Hey there, photographers, Brenda Petrella here, and welcome to the very first episode of PhotoPills Friday, where we unlock the power of the PhotoPills app to help you improve your outdoor photography. If you've ever been confused or frustrated about how to use PhotoPills, you are not alone, and these episodes are for you. If you're not familiar with the app yet, or you've been thinking about maybe buying the PhotoPills app, then this video will show you the basics of what it has to offer and how to navigate the system. So let's get right to it. The first thing we're going to do is open the app, and it's available for both iOS as well as Android on Google Play. So once you've opened the app, you'll see at the very top of the screen 3 different menu items called My Stuff, Pills, and Academy, and you can scroll left and right in order to see what each of those are. So under My Stuff, it's basically anything that you've saved or that's associated with your account. So this could be plans for photos that you've put together using the app, different points of interests that you want to keep waypoints for, your various settings and whatnot. So you probably won't spend a whole lot of time under My Stuff. It's sort of where you can save things in the background. If you then scroll to the left, that little menu item at the top will switch to the pills, and this is where all of the tools for PhotoPills live. So if you scroll down, you can see all of these various tools here. Now, PhotoPills calls each of these things pills because they're supposed to be sort of the medicine, if you will, for your pain point as a photographer. That's where the name pill came from. It's a little weird, but that's what it is. Essentially, they're tools. So each of these are different tools that you can use as part of the PhotoPills app. And we're going to get into each and every one of these in the coming video series. So stay tuned to know how to use each of these tools. If we can continue going, you come to the Academy. And in the Academy, this is where you'll find user guides, video tutorials, how-to articles, and a lot of other things that you can get into in regard to PhotoPills. Okay, so now let's just go back to the pills again for a moment. The planner is where we're going to be spending most of our time. That is where you're going to find your maps and plan your photo shoots in much, much more detail. And this is where a lot of people get hung up. So we're going to spend a lot of time using the planner and learning how to use it properly. But then there's also these other tools like sunrise, sunset, the direction of the sun, and whatnot. Same with the moon, phases of the moon. There's an exposure tool that helps you calculate exposure based on your composition, your settings, whether you're using filters, things like that. There's a depth of field tool that helps you determine depth of field according to your aperture and other settings that you're using. There's a field of view calculator. There's the depth of field table and a hyperfocal distance table. I've talked about this hyperfocal distance table in many of my other videos. What I like about it is that it also includes an augmented reality so that you can actually see where the hyperfocal distance is in your scene. Speaking of augmented reality, the night AR tool is an augmented reality so that you can basically see an overlay of the night sky in the scene that you would like to shoot. So that's really handy, especially if you're on location and you want to see if your calculations for, say, the Milky Way are going to be where you expect it to be in the sky on a specific date. You can plan for meteor showers. You can calculate camera settings for star trails. You can calculate settings for getting spot-on tack-sharp stars using the Spot Stars tool. You can calculate your time-lapse settings, so the interval, the shutter speed, and how many photos you need to take for a certain duration of time-lapse. There's a timer. There's also a way of calculating using the subject distance tool, the distance between you and your subject based on your camera settings. And lastly, there's this focal length match, which is basically if you want to compare two different cameras and two different lenses, to make sure that you can get equivalent focal lengths and fields of view between those two cameras. So it's just a handy tool, probably not one that you'll use very often. Okay, so one thing that you should do shortly after downloading the app is enable the widgets. And basically widgets are just like a shortcut on your phone to get you to information about a particular app.
Okay, I'm going to stop the video at this point. The widgets are, those of you who end up getting PhotoPills or already have it, the widget is the typical widget for your smartphone where it will, based on your location, it will give you all the information on sunset, sunrise, moonset, moonrise, the galactic center and when it's available, etc. So those are some cool features for your smartphone. I'm going to get us out of this. So she mentioned it. It's available as a mobile app. It's available for, the last time I checked, it was $11 on Google Play. And I think the Apple version is probably the same pricing.
I think so.
As far as resources to use PhotoPills, that last video was this Brenda Petrella's. She has a whole catalog of how to use different features of PhotoPills. So should you decide to get PhotoPills and begin using it, I would definitely recommend her YouTube channel. There's 21 episodes that kind of covers the A to Z of using PhotoPills. And each episode is anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes long. PhotoPills itself has a website where they have their own instructional videos. Their videos are a lot more involved and a lot longer. They can be up to an hour to hour and a half long for a particular subject. And then there's also PhotoPills sponsored YouTube instructional videos as well. So lots of information available on YouTube on how to use the app. So this is going to be a little bit of a repeat of what she just went through. So when you open up the app, there's basically 3 tabs at top. There's the the My Stuff ad, the Pills ad, and the Academy ad. And just as she suggested, we're just going to stick basically with the pills. So, and again, you saw this in our video. These are all the various tools that are available in the pills tab. So the first one is the planner. And those of you who were, it was back in the April SWG meeting, we had a demonstration on using the photographer's ephemeris, which is it's primarily a desktop app. And the screenshot here of my phone, you will look familiar to you. It's basically very similar in use as the photographer's ephemeris. So if you're used to using the ephemeris, using the planner tool in PhotoPill should be fairly easy for you to get to be able to use. So this happens to be a photo that I used a planner for to determine when the full moon would basically be setting behind the courthouse in Greensburg. And I basically knew where to set up and what time to set up and where the position of the moon would be. And you can repeat this for anything regarding the Milky Way, the moon, the sun, and any location that you happen to want to do it with. It's great for planning a photo ahead of time, rather than just kind of happening upon a photo and taking advantage of it. This way you can plan the photo the way you'd like to see it set up. It's almost magical. So this is a little bit longer of a video that shows how to actually use the planner tool and what's available in it.
That the PhotoPills photography app is a Swiss Army knife of photography planning apps. And while it is packed with tons of different tools, the planner tool is the one you'll use the most when planning your images. The planner is also the one that's most confusing to figure out. And so in this video, I'm going to review the 4 main sections of the planner to help you overcome any initial frustrations you may have in getting started. So stay tuned. Hey there, photographers, Brenda Petrella here, and welcome to another episode of PhotoPills Friday, where we unlock the power of the PhotoPills app to help you improve your outdoor photography. In this week's episode, we're starting our deep dive into the planner tool. If you've ever played around with the planner tool, then you know that it's jam-packed with functionality and features, and as such, it can be really overwhelming to navigate. So let's dive in. So the planner tool is organized into 4 main sections: the top bar, the map, the timeline, and the bottom bar. The top bar is actually a scrollable bar, and so if you swipe left or right, you can actually scroll through all of these different panels. And each panel offers you different functions and different information. So if you have the most up-to-date version of PhotoPills here in 2020, then you should have access to 11 different panels in the top bar. Notice that when you swipe through the top bar panels, there are these little white dots underneath the top bar, and that indicates which panel you are on. These panels provide information about the sun, the moon, twilight hours, the Milky Way, and many other things. These panels also provide different map layers or overlays on the map below. And these overlays can be activated or deactivated by clicking on the icons of the different panels. We'll return to each of these top panels and learn how to use them in a future video. The next area of the planner is the map section. You can move the map around by holding down your finger and sort of just dragging your finger around. You should see an orange pin in the map. Depending on whether you have overlays activated from the top panel, you may see other things like colored lines and arches and a black pin, and I have those deactivated right now on my screen for simplicity. At the bottom of the map, you'll see 3 buttons. If you tap on the middle white button with the plus sign, it will open up another bar, and we'll call this the map bar, which shows a bunch of different symbols for different functions of the map. And you can scroll on the map bar left to right to access these different functions. If you would like these icons to remain available on the map, if you scroll all the way to the rightmost icon, to the one that looks like a padlock, and click on it so that it's locked, now this bottom bar is sort of frozen to the map and you can have access to it at all times. However, if you would like to hide them again, then just simply tap on that padlock button, and now if you tap on that middle white dot with the X, you can close out the map bar. Of the 3 buttons on the map, the one on the left just shows whichever button from the map bar you last selected, and so it can work like a shortcut to that button. Note that this function is only available when the map bar is hidden. The white map button all the way to the right that looks like two layers on top of one another opens up various map settings. So if we click on that, at the top, there are two different modes, a camera mode and a drone mode, and I'm only going to be talking about the camera mode for now. Just under the modes, you can select what type of map you want, so let's click on that. You can choose from different types of Google, Apple, or OpenStreetMaps based on the kind of planning you are doing or just on your personal preference. So for example, if you want to switch from satellite to terrain, you would just click on terrain, and then in the upper right-hand corner, you could click on done, and now you have a map that looks like a terrain map. So let's jump back into the map settings. Under the map type are different map tools, such as field of view, depth of field, and the sun and the moon. You can only select one tool at a time, and we'll go into each of these options and why and how you would use them in future videos. Below the map tools are the map layers. Note that some of these layers are the same as the map layers and overlays that we can select from the top bar that we were going over earlier. So this is just another way to activate those map layers. And at the very bottom of the settings is a way of resetting the map layers to the app default, should you want. Below the map is the timeline or time bar. This is where you can scroll through a graphical display of time to see how the overlay features on the map and the information in those top panels responds over time. The timeline is displayed as a 24-hour period, and so if you press and hold on the timeline, it now stretches out to 1-hour intervals, and if you just press and hold it again, it will shrink back to the original 24-hour time period. Simply scroll the timeline to the left or right to move the timeline along. You'll note that on the timeline there are different colors, and the darkest blue color in the timeline indicates nighttime. The slightly lighter blue color indicates twilight and blue hour. The orange indicates golden hour, and then the palest of blues indicates the daytime hours. The yellow dots and yellow line indicate the rising and setting of the sun, and the blue dot and the blue line indicate the rising and setting of the moon over time. Just below the timeline graph, you'll see the day of the week, the time, and the date. If you tap on the left-hand side of the timeline skips back to notable events such as moonset, golden hour, sunrise, blue hour, etc. And if you tap on the right-hand side of the timeline, you then skip forward in time to those main events as well. If you tap in the middle of the timeline, it will bring up the time and date settings. Here, you can set the time and date of your photo plan, or you can click now to reset it to your current time. You also have the choice of having the app auto-detect and adjust for your current time zone, or you can just set it manually. Okay, last but not least, below the timeline is the bottom bar, which has even more options for you to choose from, including Find, the augmented reality and night augmented reality or AR features, load, save, and more. The Find button looks like a search button, and this can be a little misleading. It's actually not how you find locations, save plans, or points of interest, and we'll get into how to do that later when we talk about the load button. Instead, when you have the map set to your location of interest and you would like to plan for the sun or moon to be in a specific spot in your composition, but you don't know really what date or time or even if the sun would be in that location or the moon would be in that location, then the Find button will help you figure that out. So you can use the Find button to find the time and date for either the sun or moon at a given azimuth or elevation. We'll learn more about how to use this function in a later video. The next two buttons on the bottom are augmented reality features that are really cool to use when you are at your chosen location and when you want to see where the sun, moon, or Milky Way will be in your composition on whatever day at whatever time you choose on the map and timeline. You do need to calibrate the AR feature, and it does need to access your smartphone's camera, so we'll learn how to do that in a future video. Next is the load button, and this is where you would search for an address or load a previous plan or point of interest. If you already know your location's GPS coordinates, you can also plug those in here with the latitude and longitude. Or if you have a geotagged image, you can upload it here and get the coordinates from the metadata. Next is the Save button. And this is how you would save a particular plan or point of interest so that you can either return to it later or you can even share it. Lastly, under More, you can access the date and time settings again, as we already described from the timeline. You can also manually set the altitude of the map pins, which is great if you have an actual map that indicates accurate altitudes, or if you know the altitude or adjusted altitude because you're on top of a building or some other feature of known height. Also under More, you can adjust for your height above the horizon manually, which will change the settings and the information around the sun and moon rise, set, and direction information in the planner. This is helpful if you're on top of a high mountain, say way above sea level, and we'll get into the nitty-gritty of those features in a later video. Lastly, under action, this is how you can share a plan or point of interest with another friend. So hopefully now you are comfortable with navigating through the PhotoPills planner and understand how to access and turn on all of the different features. In next week's episode, we'll dive deeper into how to use that top panel of the planner so you can start planning some images. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks. Are you one of those people who have the PhotoPills app on
having
your
trouble
phone, but you're
escaping
so
from
confused
this.
about how to use it that you just don't? Well,
Oh, there we go. Okay, we'll go back to some slides. She went through a lot of these things, obviously, very quickly, but she has individual videos for basically every function in PhotoPills. And the other thing I will mention, like any piece of software, although it seems complex, when you first view it, with time, it starts making sense and becomes easier to use. So here's the three of the tools, the one for the sun, the moon, and for meteor showers. In the moon one here, you see it also shows the galactic center and when it becomes visible. So she's already mentioned this, golden hour, start and stop, and blue hour, etc. All that information is available in those tabs. The night augmented reality is pretty cool. This screenshot here on the left, for those of you who went out with me last summer and we tried to do some Milky Way photography. The other day I was out there for a walk and I just took this shot. This was earlier this week, that shows basically a vertical Milky Way that you could spot from the shore there of Mammoth Lake. The photo on the right is one I took last fall at Rocky Mountain National Park. And we were at this lily lake during the day, and I pulled out my phone and my PhotoPills app and was able to, and I knew you kind of have an eye, the Milky Way is typically in the southern sky, and it depends on what time of year, whether it's southeast or southwest, but in general, it's the southern sky. So I wanted to find out where, and there's a path that goes clear around Lily Lake. I wanted to find out where along that path I might set up the camera to get a shot of the Milky Way above Long's Peak there in the background. And that enabled me to arrive before it was dark, take the trail over to where there would be this good view and sit up and take the shot later in the evening. So this is just one display of how it can be useful in setting up a nice composition. The next three tables are on depth of field. There's a classic depth of field table, a depth of field table, and a hyperfocal table. And basically the distance involved, it's become a function of the focal length of your lens, the aperture, and the distance to the subject. I'm going to go through all three of these tables separately. My impression on this is that, let's take an experienced photographer. We'll use Brian as the example here. Brian probably has a gut feeling from experience to know, depending on what lens he has and what aperture he's using, what his general depth of field will be. And we probably all have a certain level of knowledge in that respect. What's nice about the PhotoPills, particularly as you're learning photography, you can use this to kind of get a feel for what you can and can't do from establishing sharp focus, depending on your subject and where you are and how far away you are from it, et cetera. So I think you can learn a lot of information from just pursuing or perusing the tables. So the classic depth of field, in this case, I input, my 60mm lens and with a 5.6 aperture and a foot distance to the subject, which happens to be this flower, it showed me that the depth of field was only going to be 3/16 of an inch. And the flower, the total depth is probably 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches or so. So that immediately tells me that if I want something that's tack sharp from front to back, I'm going to need to use some photo stacking to be able to do that. So particularly for macro photography, and depending on what lens and what distance you're the subject, that depth of field can get really, really small. And the only way to overcome it if you want a sharp photo is to do a focus stack.
Jim,
Yes.
does it let you change from meters to anything else for the distance?
Well, mine are in feet and inches, so the
Yeah,
answer would be yes.
Okay, because
And I
mine's in
assume it's
meters.
in the settings.
All right.
Well, Beth, the fact that you're asking this question, I assume you do use photo pills or have it.
I have it, and like it said in the video, you have it, you don't know how to use it, so you don't.
Yeah.
So I haven't. I've been looking forward to this.
It's pretty remarkable what it can do. So this is the depth of field table. And so in this case, I've got a 50mm lens on. And what this is what this is showing me is for different aperture settings and different distances to a subject, what the depth of field is. So just to use an example here, let's go down to 7 feet and a aperture of 7.1. The depth of field here is between 6'3" and 7'11". But what's nice about this is, well, you might say, well, gee, I'm not quite sure I can picture that in my mind. If you go down to this visual button, you can pop up this screen here. So this is just an example. In this case, the first one, I've got 35mm lens on at 5.6, and I assume my subject distance was 18 foot. So what it's showing me here is what the far depth of field is, which is almost 36 feet, and what the near depth of field is, which is 12 feet. And the depth of field total is roughly 23.5 feet on either side of my subject. And then the same thing over here, but I've changed the lens out to a 200mm lens and kept the subject distance at 18 foot. And here you can see now my depth of field has gone down from 23, almost 24 feet down to 6 inches. So if I'm taking that photo with my 200mm lens, I need to make sure that that fairly narrow depth of field is all I really need for that particular photo.
Can I interject for a second to answer Beth's question? Beth, if you
Found
go into my stuff and go into settings, you can change stuff. Like you can change millimeters to inches.
Yep, I found it.
Okay,
Thanks, Marty.
you're welcome.
I'm going to skip the bottom schematics there because I've got a separate slide on the hyperfocal distance. So the other thing you can do with the depth of field table is select the augmented reality. So these two examples are just taken from my backyard, basically just pointing the camera to some trees in the lawn back there. And here I've got my 35mm lens, 5.6 aperture, and this wasn't not accurate, but the tree here supposedly is roughly 18 foot from where I'm standing. So what it shows is the near depth of field, the subject, the far depth of field, and the 36.3 is the hyperfocal distance, which we're going to talk about next. And then the same thing here on the right, but with the 200 millimeter lens. And it's showing me the narrow depth of field here at 18 feet. It's plus or minus 3 inches either way. So what's hyperfocal distance? I'm going to let you read. Well, actually, I guess I can read this for you. But hyperfocal distance is a distance beyond which all objects be brought into an acceptable focus. As the hyperfocal distance is the focus distance giving the maximum depth of field, it's considered by some the most desirable distance to set the focus of a camera. That last comment, I think there's a lot of people who theoretically say, yeah, the hyperfocal distance is good, but I don't use it. I've heard a lot of professional photographers on YouTube reference this, but it is an interesting concept just to be aware of. So the hyperfocal table, again, so here on the left side is the focal length of your lens, and then your aperture across the top. And if I happen to have my 16 millimeter lens and an aperture of f8, it says the hyperfocal distance is 5 foot 5 inches. So what does that mean? Well, over here in the schematic, what it means is that the subject will be in focus and everything beyond the subject out to infinity, if you will be in focus. And I didn't do any research on this, but it seems like most people, the near focus distance tends to be half of the hyperfocal distance. And I don't know if that's just a rule of thumb as opposed to being an actual accurate representation of it.
And can I jump in for just a second?
Go right ahead.
Yeah. What I've learned is that just speaking of depth of field in general, 1/3 is to the distance of sharpest focus. And then from that third out, 2/3 to the end of that depth of field. In other words, there'll be situations where it gets out of focus at infinity. Infinity goes out of focus. I mean, that's the same thing as saying you have a focusing depth of field of 1 inch. But let's say if it was 12 inches, 1/3 of that would be in front, and then you'd have the focus point, and then the rest of that would be out to where you have the end of that 1 foot, and then everything goes back out of focus again. In other words, it's out of focus up close to the camera, it goes into focus at the beginning of wherever that hyperfocal distance is, and then 1/3 goes to the sharpest point, and then 2/3 it's gone.
Well, Rex, I don't want to argue with you, but
Okay.
The to infinity part is, I think you're shortchanging it. If you're taking a typical landscape photo, you set it at the hyperfocal distance, everything beyond the subject should be sharp.
Right. Okay. Well, maybe I was thinking more in terms of macro or close focus, like you're focusing on things that are close up. I think the hyperfocal distance is what we used with the older cameras that didn't have autofocus, and we knew when the bride and the groom were coming down the aisle to leave, you're not going to have much time to focus. So what we would set up is the hyperfocal distance. We'd say, okay, I know from this pew over to this pew on the other side of the aisle, this is going to be my sharp focus. And when those two come down through there, I take the picture and I have it and they're gone. Okay, so that's a hyperfocal distance. The same thing holds true that in that, let's say 6 feet or 8 feet or whatever it is, there would be, well, let's look at it this way. If it was 9 feet, it would be 3 feet and 6. When you got out to the 3 feet, that would be 1/3 of it, right? So that would be the sharpest focus. And then the next third, it's starting to get soft again. And at the end of that second third or third, it's out. Okay. but that's not shooting landscape where you want to know what your closest sharp point is, and then everything else is sharp from there out. I see what you're saying.
Okay, thanks, Rex.
Yep.
So here's the hyperfocal table itself, and this is the same example that we just went through, but this time I threw on the augmented reality. And again, it's showing me where the hyperfocal distance is, which is the 5'5". The next tool is the exposure tool. And I hope Brian can comment on this a little bit after I'm through with this, but you can use this if you're using a neutral density filter. So I know a lot of us, like when we do waterfall type photos, we might put a neutral density filter on to extend the shutter speed a little longer to get that blur in the waterfall. And you can do that, as these two photos show, just to try and smooth out an ocean or a lake or river water. So it kind of has that glassy finish to it. And then it also gives you the clouds. If there's any movement of clouds, it kind of extends out those across the sky. So what the exposure tool allows you to do is you would set up your camera for your shot without the neutral density filter and find out for the exposure that you wanted what your shutter speed, aperture, and ISO is. And then you say, okay, I want to put on, in this example, an 8-stop neutral density filter. And in most cases, the variable that you want to change as far as the exposure triangle goes would be the shutter speed. So what this is showing is, although the original exposure had a 1/4 second shutter speed, putting the 8-stop filter on, my shutter speed would go to 1 minute and 4 seconds. And so you could either time that exposure manually and get that resultant proper exposure based on your initial exposure reading. What I found is, particularly when you're in the woods or forest and doing a waterfall, is you don't need many stops of a neutral density filter. You may only need a 2-stop filter to get the shutter speed where you want it to be. And with a 2-stop neutral density filter, at least my camera can see through the filter, if you will, and do the proper exposure. But if you're using like an 8 or 10-stop filter, it's almost, if you look through your viewfinder, everything looks dark with that high of a stop filter on it. So the camera's metering system might not be able to actually determine a good exposure for you. So you might have to do it manually. So Brian, any comments on ND filter use and stops and whatnot?
Well, Jim, you pretty well explained that exactly how that would work or how you would use that. When you start getting into those 8 and 10 and 16 stop filters, of course, your camera can't see it, can't see through it. So it can't get a reading. So that's when you have to start either experimenting and going, well, let's see what 1 minute does. Let's see what 1 minute and 10 seconds does. Let's see what 55 seconds does. Or you can use this and go, well, I'm shooting at f11 like it says, and I'm shooting with 100 ISO, and I'm using a 10 stop loss, and it's going to give you your information that you need. So yeah, that's a nice way of doing it. So that way you can get into the ballpark a lot faster. But when in my experience, when you're shooting with those huge ND filters like that, you end up still having to experiment a little bit as far as your exposure values. But this would be quite helpful for getting started, I would say that.
Thanks, Brian. So the next two tools are the spot stars and the star trails. And I think there was a brief discussion at one of our last meetings about the length, your maximum shutter opening to avoid the stars streaking on you, on your shot, if you will. And so it's a function of your camera, the focal length, and the aperture. And in this case, PhotoPills has two rules. This 500 rule was an original rule and some mathematical formula of some sort. But based on, and this happens to be my 16mm lens that I do use for night photography, it tells me that the maximum shutter would be 20 seconds. However, this newer NPF rule, and if you can, I'm not sure you can read it, but it says it accounts for the megapixels of your camera. I'm not quite sure I understand the significance of that, but apparently if you have like Alan's Z7 is a 44 megapixel camera, I think the problem is with that larger pixels that the star streaking is more evident. I believe that's the case, or I think that's the case. And so where my 20-second shutter speed would have been okay, this is recommending, rather than take a chance, to actually limit your shutter speed to 11 seconds to avoid the star streaks. So that one can be useful for you the first time you go out and do night photography, to get a little bit of an idea of what shutter speed you should set or not go beyond. And then the star trails tool, it shows the kind of schematically, in this case, if I had a 2-hour exposure, that's about the length of the star streak that I would actually get in my photo. I've not tried this one, so I have no idea how well it works, but I guess you can give it a try and see how that works for you. Time lapse. Margie, I think sometime later this year, is giving us a presentation on time lapse photography. And in this case, what it can do is, depending on what you want to do, it can, well, let's do an example here. If you wanted the total video clip to be a total length of 30 seconds, and oh shoot, the 30 feet. I don't know what the 30 feet is. I'm sorry. Oh, that's not 30, it's minutes. I'm sorry. It's how long you're going to shoot for over time. And the 25 frames per second, these are all changeable, would be the frame rate for your resulting video. And in this case, although it's showing it's a card, it's actually what size camera do you have and approximately what are the megabytes per image. And what it calculates for you is the shooting interval, how often you wanted to take a shot, the total number of photos that would be required, and the total memory usage to do that shot. And this is just a cute little example of doing a time lapse. It's not mine, I got it off the internet. So what's cool about this is you can use the PhotoPills to set up the parameters for that shoot for yourself. The timer is just what it is. It's a timer like you would typically have on any app. So there's a few other screens here. The field of view, it calculates the angle of view and field of view based on the lens focal length, distance to the subject, and the camera orientation. I'm not quite sure why someone would need to do this, but what this is showing is once I've set up, again, in this case, a 200mm lens, subject distance of 20 feet, I'm holding the camera in the portrait orientation. This is telling me, particularly like the horizontal. So what I would have would be a 1 foot 7 inch wide shot, 2 foot 4 inches high. And this is in the augmented reality showing me how much of that scene I would actually get in my shot. I'm not quite sure this is useful. Maybe some people have a need for it, but it's there. And this is kind of the same thing. This would calculate, depending on how big an object was or how wide the object was and what lens you were using, how much of your image, which, if you will, would be filled by that subject. Again, interesting mathematics, but I'm not quite sure there's a good application for it.
I do.
Go ahead.
If you had a long marine lens and you were photographing an unidentified ship in the water off the coast, you would use this to figure out just how long that ship was, or how tall somebody was when they walked past a camera.
Oh, okay.
For forensic purposes.
All right. Good example.
Okay.
This is another one that I don't see much use for. It's a focal length match. So I'll pick on Alan again here. I happen to pick the Nikon. So the Fuji X-T2 is an APS-C sensor. The Nikon Z7 is a full frame sensor. And so in this case, we both have our 50mm lens on an aperture of 8 and a subject distance of 10 foot. This is giving me my angle of view and depth of field for my camera versus Alan's Z7. And again, it's interesting information. What one would do with it, I'm not quite sure. So that's the end of the presentation. If anybody has any questions or comments or whatever, speak up.
Thank you, Jim. That was very informative.
Yeah. Very.
I'm not sure I absorbed more than 50% of it, but thanks. There's a lot there.
I
Fair
think
enough.
using it, going out and standing there in a field and figuring out the different things while you're standing there with a camera will probably help.
As
I
long
think
as my
that's what
wife
I'm
isn't
gonna
with me,
do.
I can do that. If she's with me, forget it. So.
Had the app and you were following along to kind of understand your app a little bit. But that's
Thank
what I was doing. I was using my app as you were doing your presentation and kind of following along.
Yep.
I definitely think it's one of those apps that you have to, like Beth said, go out in the field and use it, in order to really understand it.
Yeah, I think you're right, Annie.
I'm curious about the NPF rule because I think that explains some stuff that I got when I was thinking that I hadn't hit the focus point as well as I'd wanted, but I think actually that it was too long in exposure and that's why the stars were a little streaky looking, like barely, but
Yeah.
enough that it bothered me.
That would help.
I like the idea of getting a whole flower into focus, which somehow I never seem to get there unless the photo stacking is employed, and that seems to be a reach for me.
I was just going to say, if you just photo stack it, you get everything in focus.
Yeah. Yeah.
That requires patience.
I have some instructions you put out on that one time, Brian. I know I have. It's stuck to one of my walls here right beside me, but I have to find it again. I can use it.
Yeah.
That's right. Takes patience for certain things.
All right, guys. Well, hey, that's pretty good timing. We're just about 9 o'clock. So yeah, it covers, I think, everything. We didn't get any critiquing done tonight, but we'll push that off till the next time we get a chance to.
Actually, would you critique my shot of the John Deere tractors? I want to learn more about it.
John Deere tractor.
Yeah, Friday night, I think it was, I took some pictures of, I tried to do some light painting on the John Deeres.
Oh, okay.
And I think it sucks, but I'd like to know what I'm doing wrong.
Oh, yeah, I see them. 3 of them. And a lot of stars in the background too. Very good.
All right. Well,
They look sharp.
Was the light too bright? Was it not
No.
enough?
well, it's not so much that the light's too bright. The biggest thing I see is the color. The color on that.
All right, is about pulling up.
You didn't adjust for the color of the light.
It's a little blue. It's oddly enough.
Yeah,
You guys see it now?
Yeah,
Black, the tires should be, and there's no should be, but the tires have a blue cast to them.
anything that's black on there has a blue cast to it.
Okay.
So you got a lot of blue in there. When you were shooting that, did you adjust your Kelvin on your camera or anything like that, or is that auto white balance?
I had the Kelvin at 32, but then I turned the ISO to 640.
Okay. So
I don't.
the biggest thing is, I mean, you can adjust that a little bit with your Kelvin, but you got to get that Kelvin down there to catch the sky. Otherwise, you're not going to get anything there.
Yeah.
But really, it's just a matter of, I would come back and isolate your subjects, isolate your bottom half, and then take some blue out. Try to bring that color back to the right color. The light doesn't look like it was too bright. From other light paintings that I've worked on and stuff like that, I don't think it was too bad. But was you using a single light, just a flashlight? How was you lighting that?
A flashlight. I couldn't tell you how bright it was or anything. It's either on or off.
Okay.
Oh, I see a solution here. He could use that new sky mask and then do a duplicate and invert. So you could control the sky color and then duplicate it, invert it, and do the subject.
That's kind of what I
Unless
was
the
thinking.
sky is a subject.
In
Either one.
Photoshop, or not Photoshop, but in Lightroom, you can just do a quick mask the subject, and it'll pull those tractors out.
Yeah.
And then you can back down your blue, and I think you'll get a much better picture. Lighting wise, it's not bad. There is some bright spots and some stuff like that, but that is just a matter of practice. How long was your exposures? Roughly, if you have an idea.
I'm going to say that was about somewhere between 10 and 20 seconds.
Okay.
If I go over 20 seconds with the particular setup I was using, which was my 850 with a 20 millimeter Sigma lens, I'll start to get streaking in the stars.
Yeah, you got to keep the star. You got to keep that down to keep the stars from moving, or to show the movement of the planet rather. But yeah, just it's a matter of, I mean, it's not bad as far as the lighting goes. But using flashlights when you're doing that, the biggest thing that I've found it's the easiest to do it is just use them as in a circle back and forth around to light the areas that you want to light with. And then adjust the color, and I bet you got a much better looking picture.
How about the next one?
Let me see here. Where are we at here? Next one.
I didn't even notice the blue until you started to talk about it.
Yeah, it's the same thing here. We got a lot of blue in there. And you got a really, really bright spot here.
Yep.
Yeah.
And on the door.
And
And
on
the
the
door handle.
So
Yeah.
when you're lighting that kind of stuff that's going to shine like that, it's best to light it from below up or from above down, whatever you can, get it on an angle. That way you're not going to show those. And you got to keep moving your light back and forth. If you're doing that with a flashlight, it's, you know, light it up, but move it back and forth. If you leave it sit at any one spot, you're going to get those reflections immediately. Quick motions, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And again, adjust your collar to get that blue out of there. And I think you got a better picture. A little bit off,
Focus
the
is.
John Deere looks a little bit out of focus.
Say,
Yeah, you got a little
front end is a little bit, the
off on your focus line, on your focus point, but I mean, that is what it is. You're with practice and light painting, that takes a little bit of practice too, is getting them focused in the dark.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
Brian?
Yeah.
I have a question for the officers. Can we take about 2 or 3 minutes after everybody's off?
It's fine with me. I only have a few minutes though. I'm in the middle of, I have to have like I said, an RC done for 5 o'clock in the morning. So,
Yeah, that's fine. It's just a couple of minutes.
okay. All right, guys. If there's nothing else from anyone else, I'll be looking forward to seeing you guys at the Renaissance Festival. Don't forget to get your pictures ready for Marty.
You're a homeowner in Pennsylvania and you're still paying for
So,
electricity that you could be.
all right, guys.
When's
Thank
the
you very much.
Renaissance Festival? When's the Renaissance Festival?
Oh, Renaissance Festival. What do we decide, guys? The 4th, right?
4th.
September 4th.
September 4th, Dennis. Yeah, you weren't here just yet. Yep.
Yep.
All right. And
Fourth,
we'll
10
meet like we
o'clock
always
at the
do right out front.
4th, 10 o'clock at the gate.
all right, Dennis, I'll give you a call in a couple days.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, guys. If there's nothing else,
everybody.
Dennis.
all right, officers hang out, and I'll see the rest of you guys at a later point. Thank you much.
Good
Okay.
night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Dawn,
Bye,
thanks for joining
Suzanne.
us. Yep, he gone.
Bye, Suzanne.
Bye.
Mhm.